Hello everyone, I'm Luxon, and I play video games. One of those series of games I play is Fire Emblem, and I actually made a video about it a few weeks ago. It did horribly, which is exactly why I'm going to be referencing it a lot again in this one. One thing people who are fans of the series like to do is play through randomizers of their favorite games. A randomizer being basically ROM hacking the game so that certain things are randomized in a way that gives extra unpredictability and replay value into a series that is kind of known for already having those things. And since I sort of got back into the series a little bit more recently, I realized that might be a thing you could apply to Xenoblade as well. Unfortunately, it might take a while before any of this could actually be implemented because there isn't really a lot you could do for randomizing the original game, and X isn't the greatest emulation-wise so far, and obviously, although you can do things like swap around party members and blades in 2, it's still not to the point of, yeah, we can ROM hack the entire game and still make it run smoothly. So this is more of a think about this a few years from now when it might actually be possible to pull off, but it's still cool to talk about. I'll also be ignoring Torn of the Golden Country because I see it as a separate, entirely new 4th game in the series, but from what we know about it gameplay-wise so far, there's not really any way a randomizer could actually add stuff to it. And since most of my viewers are players who got into the series with 2, I realized the best way to keep audience retention and get all that sweet, sweet ad revenue is to talk about Randomizing X first. Because why not go in release order? That's all I got. Out of all the Xenoblade games, X is actually the closest to the Fire Emblem games it's contemporary with, surprisingly enough, at least on a superficial level. It has a large playable cast, and the main character of the story is a customizable avatar who can choose their class, while everyone else is kind of stuck in their own. So there's a lot less to talk about here. Basically, randomize X like you would randomize Awakening or Fates. Keep your avatar character the same so it doesn't completely blow up everything, but randomize all the other playable party members including their classes. Now, you might have to do things where other party members can't access avatar classes because other party members can get up to level 20 in a class, while your character can only get up to level 10 because they can change classes. And yeah, you might have to like disable voice clips for arts because if any character can actually use any art because all the characters are rigged so that they can use the same animations for everything. So they can be animated for any art animation without any difficulty. It's the fact that they wouldn't have a voice clip for it. So they might either just call out the wrong art name if they're randomized into a class that has arts that they don't normally have, or you just have to disable their battle dialogue so it doesn't crash the game by doing that. And additionally, you might have to screw around with the way affinity missions work, because you do need to do some of those to get through the story, and if Elma gets randomized into being Mia, and you need to pass a bunch of Elma-required missions to get through the story, that's kind of a problem. So I'd suggest doing the same thing Fire Emblem randomizers usually do, which is make a character that's replacing a certain important character count as that character. And that's going to take a bit of explanation here, and I'm going to have to use a Fire Emblem example to explain a Xenoblade example. In Chapter 14 of Eliwood's story in Fire Emblem 7, you can recruit the character Priscilla by visiting the lower village on the map with any of the units you have deployed. She'll then join you and come with you for the rest of the game, provided you keep her alive. However, in Chapter 16, you can use her to talk to the enemy unit Raven, who turns out to be her long-lost brother, and also recruit him. Then in the same chapter, he can also recruit the neutral unit Lucius, whom he was imprisoned with and struck up a sort of friendship with. But in a randomizer, the odds that any of those characters are actually the same characters, let alone all 3, is incredibly low. So the randomizer basically treats it as whoever replaces those characters counts as those characters for the purpose of interaction as part of the story. For example, let's just say Priscilla is replaced with Dorcas, Raven is replaced with Nino, and Lucius is replaced with Athos. So in Chapter 14, you take one of your equally screwed up and randomized units, visit the same village, and instead of recruiting Priscilla, you'll recruit Dorcas in whatever class he randomized into. Then, 2 chapters later, you'll notice a really messed up Nino as an enemy unit, and lo and behold, bring Dorcas up to her, they'll talk, they'll have the same conversation and say the same lines that Raven and Priscilla would use, but it would be Dorcas recruiting Nino, and you would get Nino in her randomized state to join the party. Then, walk over to the cell where Lucius is normally kept captive, talk to Athos, and hey, you get his randomized form recruited into your party as well. So, in an X randomizer, the same thing would basically happen. Let's just say that Elma was replaced with HB, and Lynn was replaced with L in a certain randomizer. Then all the affinity missions that would require Elma and Lynn to be in the party, and also, all the story missions, would instead require HB and L, and any affinity gateways that are based off of Elma and Lynn's affinity would instead require HB and L affinity. That would mean, unfortunately, that you'd end up doing Elma and Lynn's affinity missions for HB and L and not actually Elma and Lynn, but at the same time, it does mean that when you unlock a certain party member, you'll also unlock affinity missions for them and not for another character that, again, could get randomized into Mia and not be available until you've basically finished most of the game, so it also kind of balances out. In fact, if you wanted to make sure that each class from another party member besides Cross doesn't get duplicated and you do have one of each, even if it's on a different character, you could still sort of do that as long as you wrote it into the randomizer code, because every non-Cross class, aka the ones that can go up to rank 20 and not just rank 10 like the Cross ones, is actually considered a different class in the game's code. Because, yes, several of them are named Psychoruptor Plus, because there are like 3 characters who are Psychoruptor Pluses, but they're all different. They all have different weapons, the characters will learn different skills, and they'll learn their own 2 signature arts at a different time, and even arts they share they'll learn differently. Even Lao and Bose, who are both regular Partisan Eagles without the plus and just with the normal weapons the class has, are completely different in the order they learn things. Not counting for the fact that, yeah, each of them have 2 unique arts that only they can use and the other one can't. So, if anything, I'd actually also go into the ROM and edit the names of the classes to be the name of the character that normally has that class. So, say if Hope gets randomized into Arena's version of Psychoruptor Plus, you'll actually be able to know that it's going to be using Arena's learn table, and you can look up when Hope will learn all the arts and skills she'll get, so that, hey, you actually sort of know what kind of character you're gonna get out of this and know whether or not you're gonna, use her and stuff. And this is still very much in the spirit of Fire Emblem randomizers. Usually you're able to see the growth rates. You're either gonna get, like, a notepad file with all the changes in the randomizer, or the game will be modded to let you see the growth rates, so how they're different from the character's normal ones after class bonuses, or if you randomize the growths themselves. So, yeah. That's really all I've got for X itself, but before going into the wacky things I thought of for 2, I got one thing that'll actually work for both of them, and that's to randomize the unique monsters and tyrants. Now, for the sake of keeping the game somewhat stable, I wouldn't randomize any story bosses, even if they do play the unique monster battle theme, but all the just random unique monsters that might be, just a regular quest thing, or an affinity node on a blade in 2, or just one that's out there for the challenge, why not just randomize them? Now, I'm not going to be that guy and say, oh, guess what? That level 3 bunny is now a super boss at level 100 plus. I would instead keep the level of whatever unique monster is being replaced, but replace it with that level version of another unique monster. And yeah, since some enemies are capable of being within a certain level range, there are actually level scaling formulas for how a certain enemy's stats will scale per level for both games. So just apply that formula to whatever level the enemy you're replacing is, and bam, you've got it. So we're going to use 2 as an example, just as a way to transition into the randomizer ideas I had for 2. So let's just say you're walking through Gormott with your randomized party, just on the way to Torgoth to just screw around, keep going with the story, pick up whoever replaced Tora, all that good stuff, and you walk past that little area where the level 8 Bunnet unique monster Moonlighting Elwyn usually would be. However, you don't see Elwyn. You do see a few of the Bunnets around there that are usually by him, but instead you see Territorial Rotbart. And first off, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is Gormott, Rotbart's there. I guess they didn't randomize that one, because why would they be nice to us? But no, this Rotbart is level 8. In this example, Elwyn was replaced with Rotbart, so where Elwyn would normally stand, you've got a level 8 version of Rotbart. Now, I'm not particularly sure if you'd actually still be able to beat him, because, you know, it's still Rotbart. Even if you had the normal party you'd have at that point in the game and got Tora, it still might be a bit difficult just because of the abilities Rotbart has and the abilities you wouldn't have at that time, but it's still a level 8 version. And for simplicity's sake, we'll just say that Rotbart was replaced with Elwyn, so when you're running around in Gormott, you might accidentally aggro a level 80 unique monster, but this one's a Bunnet with a lot less threatening arts that was designed for an earlier game, so you might have a much better time with it. And additionally, with luck, it would be possible to again have certain unique monsters or tyrants count as the ones they replaced for the purpose of quests. So if you've got a quest that says kill Elwyn, then you could do it by killing the level 8 Rotbart instead of, well, the level 80 Elwyn. Hopefully it would also be possible to get it to change the name in the quest itself, but I wouldn't hold out for that, so you might have to actually look up where that unique monster or tyrant would be, and then figure out who replaced them and stuff like that. But it's still cool. I had that idea. It might take a lot more work than even the big randomizations I had in mind for 2, but I still think it would be a really cool thing to have. And really, if anything, that would be the one thing I'd say to randomize for the original Xenoblade, because it does still have unique monsters working the same way as Tyrants in X and UMs in 2 work, even if there aren't enough party members or customization options to really be able to randomize those. So with that, we move into Xenoblade 2 proper, and I'm gonna have to throw up a spoiler warning, unfortunately, because there are spoilerific things that need to be discussed. So, how about my usual through Chapter 7 spoiler warning? I don't need to talk about plot, I just need to talk about the way certain characters play. So if you don't mind knowing about all the playable party members and certain spoiler-related blades you get, then sure, it's not too big a deal, but if you don't want to know anything, then don't watch this, basically. The main problem results in the fact that 3 of your party members have blades forced on them at certain points in the story. Rex is obviously Force-given Pyra, but he also has to awaken the Wind Knuckle from the Core Crystal in Gormott, awaken Rock from the Core Crystal, and then he's also Force-given Nia. Tora is Force-given Poppy QT at the end of Chapter 4, as well as Cutie Pie if he does her quest, and Morag is Force-given Aegeon's Core Crystal, even though she doesn't actually ever have to awaken it. The best way around this is to basically force those 3 party members to be a party member that's capable of doing what they're doing. And by that I mean, Rex and Morag both have to be either Rex, Nia, Zeke, or Morag in their randomized form, because they're forced to awaken Core Crystals, or in Morag's case, Aegeon's Core Crystal is locked to her, so only she can awaken it. If Morag is replaced with someone who can't awaken Core Crystals, then you're screwed out of a blade no matter what. You could set that Core Crystal specifically so that it can be awakened by Morag and not the person replacing Morag, so Morag would just get another blade whenever you get her in the party, but I'd rather just have the person replacing Morag actually able to use Aegeon's Core Crystal. And in Tora's case, he can be any of the 5 final party members because the only requirement is that they can use more than one blade, as opposed to being able to awaken Core Crystals since, well, Tora can't. Unfortunately, that means that once you get to the point in the story where the party is finalized, only 40% of it is actually going to be genuinely randomized, so you're not going to actually be, like, forced to use a new party member that's randomized in. Like, if you have someone randomized to be either Malos, Jin, or Vandam, you're never going to be forced to use them at any point in the story, because you'll have a party of 3 at the very least that is main party members, and you could just get through the rest of the game, even with randomized unique monsters, with that. So, why not just add another level of craziness into it and randomize people's blades? the way I'm thinking about this is, again, everyone who only has one blade, that includes Jin and his dummy blades, is kept completely the same. However, all 5 of the main party members, their blades are randomized. And by that I mean, all of the blades they're required to get as part of the story is replaced with a random, rare blade that they're able to use. Yeah. So, Rex's dummy blade at the beginning of the story, say Rex is still himself. Rex randomized into Rex. At the beginning of the story, Rex's dummy blade could get replaced by Pyra. And then let's say Pyra is replaced with Finch. So Rex is required to now use Finch throughout the entire story. Then the Wind Knuckle would still be the Wind Knuckle because, well, Rex has to be randomized into one of the 4 party members that can use Knuckles, and that's a common blade. But then say Rock is randomized into, I don't know, Dahlia. And then Blade Nia is randomized into, I don't even know. So, yeah, things can go really crazy with that. Say, once Nia joins, she doesn't have Dromark as her main required blade, she has Florin. And then Bridget is replaced with a Gion, and a Gion is replaced with Bridget, say if Morag is herself still. Then you start off with the Katana, and once you get a Gion's Core Crystal, you eventually awaken it, and you get Bridget instead. Now, you would probably have to skip through Awakening cutscenes, just so it doesn't completely break trying to load a non-existent Awakening cutscene for a character's main blade. Like, say Nia awakens Dromark from a Core Crystal as a rare blade, then there could be a bit of a problem. But you could also get wacky things like Rex's Master Driver kicking in and him getting Dromark as Pyra, which means Nia can, you know, never actually use him. A lot of weird things can happen with this, and the way I'd see it is, say Rex gets randomized into Zeke, so Rex is Zeke. Actually, no, let's say Rex is Nia, because this is talking about Nia in the party, and it just so happens that Dromark gets randomized into Pyra, so you still got Rex and Pyra. Pyra can't transform into Mithra until you get through that cutscene at the end of Chapter 3 where she does transform for the first time, even though she's Dromark. And Nia can't transform into Blade form until you get to that cutscene, even if the person replacing Rex gets a completely different rare blade from Nia out of that. And, of course, if no one randomized into Rex, so you have a Nia in the party but no Rex, then you can't turn her into Blade form at all, because there's no Rex for her to be her driver. A lot of really interesting things can come out of this, and I'd really want to see how a playthrough of that would go, but again, we're going to have to wait a while for that. But until next time, which won't be until that long, this is Luxon, signing off.